Matt, you are first.
Heather, do you want me to kind of scoot over? Because you
Update from
You
town
sure?
administrator. You
You
have,
guys already reorganized, right?
what's that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We have, yeah.
Yes, we did that last meeting.
Well,
So as we prepare for the town meeting in November, I guess, Matt, anything we need to be really focused on? By the way, Gene, is somebody taking minutes tonight, or should I do that again?
We can. If Stephanie did start, it's up to you.
Okay.
But it is televised, so you don't have to take them as you go.
Okay. So, Mr. Wojcik.
in order to help Stephanie, I think if somebody would just take down who makes the motion, what the motion is, and who makes the second,
Yeah.
and pauses briefly so she can get the timestamp on it, that'll help her
Okay.
orient, because she doesn't know a lot of people yet, and doesn't know you by your face, especially if you're wearing a mask, so. The other thing you could do, Mr. Chairman, if members could just go around and introduce themselves, so that when she can place a face with a name.
Carol Pawlowski.
Okay, Dick Vandenberg.
Sandy Kuipers.
Heather Moore.
Phil Landry.
I'm awash in spreadsheet data, so my head hurts, my eyes hurt. If all we want to really get at right now is preparation for November 8th,
Right.
we've had a couple of mishaps over the last year, and they've found their way to the special town meeting agenda. Our insurance is capped at $500,000 for environmental spills like we had in the basement. The current cost is over $600,000. So the town is on the hook for everything above the $500,000, as well as the deductible, which is not a lot of money anyway. Is there an end in sight? The good news is we've had several tests in a row with no petroleum result. It's odd because there's a sheen and it smells, but it's not coming back as petroleum in the groundwater. So that's good news. There's still going to be closeout costs. There may be ongoing well monitoring costs. We can roll that into the operating budget, but we're going to need to pay the vendor for the work that was done timely. There's a significant possibility of a lawsuit arising from this. The vendor that sold us the fuel oil had previously settled with the Massachusetts Attorney General in a consumer protection case, so it was only extended to residential customers. But Peterson Oil paid about a $250,000 fine for putting too much biofuel into their heating oil mix. Some of that is chicken fat and other animal fat products that form this sludge at the bottom of a tank. Now, our system here was a day tank, very small tank, was pumping fuel into it for the day, and then the boiler was taking the oil off the day tank. So if there was any sludge in our system and those floats got stuck, which is what happened, the pump ran continuously until it basically imploded the seals, and then it went all over the floor. There's a school district, the Dayton-Rehoboth Regional School District, had a spill much worse than us, and they are also a Peterson customer. So we've been back and forth with our insurer to try to subrogate the claims to Peterson's insurer, and I don't know where that's going to end up, but we're not just letting this lie. We're going to pursue every possibility to recover this, but for the time being, we have to pay the bill. So that is on the town meeting warrant.
Which item is that, Matt, you remember?
That's Article 9.
Oh, 9.
Article 9.
Yeah.
The fire station was struck by lightning back in June. The good news is the actual damage was minimized. There was a emergency backup power unit, an APS, sitting there that blocked the surge from shorting out or destroying a lot of the network equipment that was in the closet. That's the good news. There's been sometimes lightning takes a while the damage to really show up. So we waited a couple of weeks, and then I made the decision that the chief needed to hire an electrical engineer to do a survey, because I wanted somebody with testing equipment to come in, test all the receptacles, review the ground, make sure that the whole building was set up properly. And, yeah, there was a little bit of bad news from that, which was, the building isn't properly grounded. So we lost a lot of the electrical appliances that were on the rear wall as a result of that. But he had a much more startling conclusion, which was that not only was the generator knocked out, one of the reasons why the generator got knocked out is because it doesn't have any surge suppression at all. It wasn't installed properly. It is far too small, so we're trying to run that fire station on a 30 kW emergency backup generator. And just for giggles, if you want to know how much your electric coil-top stove at home takes, it's 8 kW per burner. So the emergency generator that backs up the Douglas Fire Station could not power all 4 coils of an electric stove at the same time. But we're running the fire department out of the building. And more importantly, we have a single-phase 400 amp service into the building, and we actually need about 600 amps 3-phase service into the building. So to adequately power the building is not a result of the lightning strike, it's a result of the electrical engineer's survey. We said the reason why you're doing so much damage to so many of your appliances is that the building is constantly in brownout. And modern appliances are only made to work within a small variation of voltage. Beyond that, they start to fail. So we have all kinds of motors and radios and computers and tablets and all the equipment on the ambulance is all plugged in to charge. This wasn't contemplated when this station was built. The station was built for a call fire department. So I've circulated, and I hope you had a chance to read, because it's really nice and concise, a short report from the electrical engineer. He did a lot of hard work on the quote, so that price with the contingency of $292,000 is pretty much what it will cost to do the electrical work in the building. While we're grinding away at that, the recommendation from the fire chief and me is to replace the roof. The roof is over 20 years old, so it's beyond its useful life. It seems kind of silly to throw 300 grand at a building's electrical service and have a bad roof sitting over the top of it. It's not a complicated roof, it's not an expensive roof. It's about a $50,000, $60,000 project. So those are on town meeting.
I noticed, Matt, in the report from the engineer and the projections for the cost, they didn't throw air conditioning in there.
No, and I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
The air conditioning situation in the building is one of the reasons why we brown it out, because I don't even know where they find this stuff. These room air conditioners that are on wheels and stuff, and a great big tube that goes to the window. Where do you get them? Safe Right? I mean, some place has been closed for like 30 years. I don't know where you got them. But they're not window units. They're horribly inefficient. They draw a tremendous amount of power. And the furnace for that small building pretty much would fit in this rectangle here. It's enormous. It was set wrong. It was running at a really high burn rate, so we were ripping through fuel oil. Probably one reason why that one didn't clog is because it was blowing through it so fast it didn't have time to sit and coagulate. We've replaced a lot of the domestic service in the building with a hot water heater, on-demand hot water heater. So we're taking all that inefficiency out of it, but we're still reliant upon the furnace to heat the building. If we had a heat pump system in there, we could heat and cool the building much more efficiently than we are. The Green Communities formula, you can tear your hair out talking to these people about how they calculate savings, because they're very, very conservative and typically wrong. They only look at one dimension. So they look at the exact thing that you're doing and what will exactly the impact of that one thing be. They don't seem to be capable of calculating the energy, projected energy usage in a building that's been insulated, weatherized, and the heat system upgraded, because there's a geometric effect. It's not a straight line. When you get real high-efficiency appliances in a really well-insulated building, you save a lot more than just what you would. So long story short, the payback on an HVAC heat pump system at the fire station's over 30 years, which is too long for the Green Communities Grant. The conversation I'd like to have with Capital on Thursday is the potential for pursuing ARPA funds, and it's a bit of a stretch. ARPA funds have a designated allowed use, which is to improve the ventilation system in appropriate public settings. And they give hospitals as an example of where they approve HVAC improvements. I think they didn't want to say it, but they really meant prisons, because that's where COVID went nuts. And they usually have terrible HVAC. The school departments all have ESSER and other sources of funds. In our case, though, I think we're going to argue that our fire department was completely debilitated by COVID. It went through the building, it took down most of our staff, and they all, if you've ever been in the building, they sleep in real close quarters upstairs on the second floor, on the mezzanine. So improving HVAC will actually improve our ability to keep the fire department moving when there's contagious disease spreading. That's going to be the angle we take to try to get 50 or 60 grand out of our $2.7 million allocation for HVAC. I'm cautiously optimistic that we'd be allowed to do that. We've been very careful. So to go through the federal funds summary, I know Gene has better numbers than I do. Our CARES Act original allocation was in the $870,000 range. We spent as much as we thought we could legitimize as a response to the emergency. FEMA rules changed. FEMA went from partial reimbursement to complete reimbursement. So anything that was FEMA qualified, we no longer had to draw down CARES to pay for it. FEMA is paying for it, but it's another submission process. And we were able to pay for all of the PPE that was asked for from the school department during that time as well. We have probably about 400,000 left. Probably.
Oh,
I think it's more. Yeah.
I don't know, but it is significant amount remaining.
It's a lot of money. That will be returning back to the Commonwealth. I don't have a lot of projects left that are eligible. I have got an e-permitting contract, so the entire build-out of the e-permitting scheme for the building department was paid for with CARES Act funds, not town funds. We still have planning, zoning, and Concom that are lined up to do that project. And we've got the Commonwealth saying we need to obligate funds and get the beneficial use of the project by October 29th. If I got a rock star staffer on board tomorrow, I'd be hard pressed to get all those milestones by October 29th. Because we have extenuating circumstances, we've had a vacancy on the staff from the responsible person. I'm going to see if DLS will work with us. As long as we have all the contracts and the scope of work completed and the milestones established by October 29th, can we spend through the deadline, which would be December 31st? If not, we might be able to still use ARPA funds, but I'd rather use CARES and leave ARPA for other things. ARPA, our allocation is $2.7 million. There are two funding sources. One is we are a non-entitlement unit of government. And secondly, there is a county allocation, but because our county no longer functions, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts allocates the county's funds to each municipality on a per capita basis. So it's pure population share. Whereas the non-entitlement, it was more of a function of our budget size and other factors. So it comes out to $2.7 million of funds that have substantial restrictions. We can either respond now, who knows what Delta and Mu and Lambda and all these other crazy variations of COVID will do, and whether or not we'll be forced back into the footing that we were in. Assuming that today's conditions are the conditions that would go forward, and we don't have to do that, we wouldn't have much left for COVID response. And we don't have a lot of opportunities for revenue replacement because, frankly, we didn't lose a whole lot of revenue.
Matt, can I interrupt for just
Yeah.
a sec? So the ARPA money, is any of that actually, it's in our till right now?
It's already-
Spending it?
Yeah.
So-
Some of it is. We didn't receive the full 2.7.
You're going to get 2 tranches.
Okay, so as we look ahead to our November special town meeting, any of those ARPA funds impact any decisions that are on the warrant? Or is it kind of all behind the scenes, would you say?
It's behind the scenes, but it's like anything else. It's pushing things that we might have asked for capital funds into a different
Okay.
category of funding,
Yeah.
leaving the door open to use funds for other capital projects that we might not have gotten to.
We can't use ARPA to get a new generator at the fire station.
It would be a hard case to
Okay.
make. It's not on the eligible list. So what we're talking about is primarily water and sewer. And we have spent some of the funds already for design engineering associated with the economic development project up and down Gilboa Street. You cannot apply for a grant unless your work is at 100% design. Actually, I think it's 90, but we pushed it to 100, so it would be truly shovel-ready, and we get some bonus points in the grant process for that. I explained this whole thing to the select board the other night. I don't know that I want to belabor the topic with FinCom, except to say that we have a very strong MassWorks grant application. We've gotten that feedback. We're in the running for a substantial grant. We may get 0, we may get a lot.
Yeah.
We moved things around to come into compliance with the grant limitations because we had originally asked for more than they typically fund. The clear feedback was we would never get that much money. So we took natural gas out of the project description, hoping that our private partners will negotiate with Eversource and meet the private sector's capital investment threshold without needing to use grant funds. So that leaves us with about a little bit less than $1 million gap in terms of funding the engineering for all water and wastewater to finish, and the construction management services that are part of the contract. So we made a formal obligation of those funds as a match in order to keep the grant application moving through the process with a source of funds that the select board directly controls. It's one of those little civics things. Grant money comes in, it's without further appropriation may be spent by the select board. Obviously, everybody around the state hasn't seen this much money come from the feds in a long time. So people are building process, and we have an idea of trying to get FinCom, Capital Committee, Building Facilities Committee together to prioritize those projects that we have. For the record, the water line down Gilboa Street was rated the #1, the single most important project in town by the Capital Committee 3 years ago, but we did not have sufficient funds to pay for the whole project. So it was set aside since it wasn't an emergency threat, but it was still rated the most important project. At the time, it was about $670,000 worth of water work. So it's not outside the realm of possibility to do this. Other federal grant money. There's a pot of money that's available every year to fire departments all around the country. It's called the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. Chief Vincent refers to it as AFG. And in the past, Douglas has been very successful. It's almost on a, you don't get something every year. It'd be highly unusual for you. But when it's your turn, so to speak, if you make a good case, you can usually get funding. We've bought turnout gear. I think we've bought different components for different systems over there. This year, the application was for a brush truck. A brush truck is really a heavy-duty pickup with a utility body on it and sufficient power in the engine and the electrical system to run a substantial pump and carry about anywhere from 300 to 500 gallons of water. Our existing forestry brush truck is a 1973 pickup with an equally challenging pump on it. And it's been nicknamed Woody, as in Woody Woodpecker, and there's a little Woody Woodpecker logo on the front, and it's all very charming, but it's old. It's 50 years old, and you look around, you see the environment here is the state forest and private forested lands, and it just was, so as a condition of the grant, you have to get rid of all the old assets. You can't keep them. That's the challenge to your seriousness. If you think you can still squeeze more life out of it, you shouldn't be applying for the AFG grant. So they tell you, you have to prove that you've disposed of the asset, and anything related to
You're
it.
saying dispose of prior to applying?
No, once you get your replacement equipment, you have to get rid of the old
Okay.
thing. So Woody unfortunately is going away.
So Matt, is this roughly Article 5? then?
That's Article 5. So there's going to be a town share. The grant caps at 250, so that means they'll pay 237.5 maximum.
Gotcha, yeah.
We spec'd out a brush truck that's more like 273. So we're going to be asking town meeting to make up the difference.
Yeah.
You said the grant caps out at what?
250 total project cost.
Article 5.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, that's the grant award amount was 238,095.20.
Oh, okay, that is the grant amount. All right, so
There's an-
we're going to be asking for 40?
Admin piece, I think that makes it.
So we're asking for the 40 for the, okay.
But clearly, it saves the town $238,000. It's a good move. It was on the capital plan, it was on the 5-year plan for replacement.
Can we sell Woody for 40 grand?
No,
No?
Keeping what you get $1,000.
All right, well, I'm
well,
just
nowadays, used cars are
trying to
tough to
think
come by.
economy, you know?
It's roadworthy.
It's an antique.
It's an antique, thank you, Sandy, perfect.
Chips to run it.
That's right. You're the marketing director right there.
All right, anything else, Matt?
I'm just,
So in a few minutes, everybody, we're going to actually go through the articles for the town meeting in November.
so I just
Matt
wanted,
has spoken to some, yeah, go ahead.
just the general financial condition of the town. It's a good feeling being able to look at numbers and see that the ink is black and not red.
Yep.
And what you perceive is real. So the economy has been strong and has resulted in real estate prices going up and real estate demand for housing going up and the census for the town of Douglas going up. So we're probably closer to 9,600 people than we are 8,600 at this point. I think the official number was 94, but we know that the 40B is building condos pretty quickly, and we got a lot of houses going up. So we're at about a decennial increase of about 7.5% in population in town. The increase in value has led to certified new growth, about 345,000. This is the third year in a row that it's a significant number like that. I think we were at a little over 400,000, then we went to 330 or so, and then we're at 345 this year. So the last 3 years, we've seen almost $1 million in new growth. And that's a funding pot that comes in, and it also gives you a little bit of a sense of the overall strength of the tax base. And when we're looking forward to commercial real estate growth in town because of the warehouse projects, it's a significant dilution of the tax burden onto a broader and more diverse tax base, which is good news for the town. We also had a good year in terms of unanticipated revenues because we sold town property. Our cannabis partners have been paying their host community agreements, which is good news. And we had a pretty substantial turnback. And on top of it all, the building e-permitting project actually increased compliance. More people, because it's easier to get a permit. Those little $10 roofing permits that everybody wanted to kind of just say, I have to go to town hall, I have to talk to people, they're going to come out to Baloney now. You just get on your computer, you fill out the form, it takes about 10 minutes. You do your roof. The permit's a small charge. Most of the time, it's $10. But compliance is up across the board. There's a lot of building going on. The overall revenue picture in the building department is really, really strong. So it's a very good year, and we're going to close the books. I'm not going to speculate what our free cash will be. I know it's more than zero. And we carried over quite a bit from last year, because we didn't know what the budget picture would be because of the pandemic and the state's revenues. So we're not in a position to spend money willy-nilly without careful analysis. But we are in a position to fund substantial projects. And we'll be talking about those things as we go through the fall, so, and into the winter, we're in budget season. Because there are some things that have been left to languish for a long time that need solutions, not the least of which is the roadway system. Municipal buildings, we're still catching up. And we're also catching up, not across the board, but with specific pockets of our employment base. We have fallen behind other towns. It's very difficult to recruit people to work here in certain roles because they do much better in other communities, and we can't lure them away. So we've embarked on a review of the personnel compensation system. We started off the last fall town meeting, or last town meeting, you'll recall, we did longevity. So if people have been here for more than 15 years, it's a $1,000 bonus. I've interviewed everyone at Town Hall. I've still got to get to Highway to get feedback from every single employee on what they know about what their peers make. Are they happy working here? Do they feel worthy? Is the salary match what they're doing? It's been a very important process for me to go through and start to summarize a report. I still have in my head, and I'm not afraid to spitball this, is that there are compensation systems out there on the municipal side. I don't know if this work in public safety, and it wouldn't work with public education, but it could work here. That you have steps that are organized around an individual's longevity in the job. So they typically are 5 years apart, 5, 10, 15, 20. And your merit conversation, your annual evaluation, is in terms of expediting or quickening your step to the next step. So instead of waiting 5 years to get your 5 or 6% bump, it's only 3 because you're performing so well. And we just hold that carrot out because we want you to stay. We say, well, yeah, you're going to get a real good raise sooner than you anticipated. Just keep working hard and doing a good job. In the meantime, the stability allows us to give a little bit more robust COLAs. Just 1% a year, if we do 1% a year for 5 years in a row, and the town of Sutton does 2.5% 5 years in a row, the gap between people whose job is almost exactly the same starts to get to be really noticeable. And that's what we're up against now. Employees made a lot of sacrifices, including our teachers and our public safety people. Over the years, when the town was constrained financially and wasn't able to provide COLAs, and in some cases did not even provide steps. And that was good then, and it helped the town balance its books. But it comes to roost 5, 6, 7 years later when you're starting to compare yourself to other communities. So that's an ongoing effort in terms of the overall financial direction of the town that I feel obligated to put out there right now. I should stop there. That's a long-winded update already.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. Anybody have any questions for Matt from the committee?
The only thing I have is, are we going to see some actual numbers and things like that as far as income and all these different proposals for the town meeting? You're going to see some more factual, like, numbers?
Well, for the November town meeting, it's kind of wrapping up loose ends from the summer and fall, and then for
Sure.
the big town meeting in the spring is, I think, when we get the harder numbers. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah.
I will be closing out, I'm working on year-end now.
Yeah.
So I'll be closing out the books and hopefully have a free cash number for the October meeting.
Okay.
Because free cash will be used as funding source of some of these articles.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things that Matt spoke about was, certified new growth, and that's all part of the fall process. This is no different than any other year. Usually I have till the end of September, beginning of October is usually when I close out the books for FY21.
Okay.
Okay.
I know we had talked about getting access to, kind of not a live spreadsheet, but some kind of thing that we could take a look back at, previous years, take a look at current year, compare apples to apples, all that good stuff. Is that something that's in the works? Or is that something that, you were talking about the E-system being really convenient, and that would be such a great system for us anyway, to be able to kind of do some legwork.
So we originally, I've got to get back to IT on this, because when we were a Google client, every time we added an email address, it was a new charge, and our fees would go up on a regular basis. With Office 365, we seem to have the ability to create lots of addresses. It would be hugely beneficial if all of our board and committee members would accept a town email address, because adding you to sharing arrangements is so much easier. You just have to remember your login, and you can make it real simple. We're going to use it later in executive session, but the budget's been posted on the FinCom SharePoint in Microsoft since last year.
Yeah, no, I remember we were just all having trouble syncing up
And-
with
yeah.
different emails and whatnot.
So, yeah, the outside email thing, you can do it. It's possible.
It is.
But you have less ability to see things and manipulate things and,
Yeah.
and create your own version and download it and call it something different. So far, so good. We've had much better luck. Some of the new members of the select board and other committees have .gov addresses with the town, and now they just log in through that. And we can, on your email, your town email, we could put a pointer to whatever email you want to use and just bounce your email to you.
So we still have Friday emails for our own stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Good relation, first name, last name.
and that's, so I'm going to work it out with David and make sure that we're not overspending, but
So that'll be our
clearly, the
log
select
on.
board, FinCom, the school committee if they want it, probably planning board too, should all have town email addresses. So we can create a SharePoint, put a document there, and then the next time you complain about not having numbers, we just look at you and say, it's right there, what are you
Yes.
doing?
See, wouldn't that be awesome if I was quiet? Right?
I live for it, Phil.
See, there I am. I'm trying to help you.
I'm here to, I'm for the
I'm here to
government,
help
and I'm
you.
here to help you. Yeah.
So, yeah, that,
I just probably can't figure out how to get it. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
So the best thing for us to do would be to,
If they need to
we can just do a,
do it.
They need to establish the email, they'll send us the link, and then to our private,
And they'll tell us
personal
what we're
email,
supposed to
and
do.
then we'll go in and do it. And we can spend a board meeting just going through how to utilizing it,
That sounds good.
to how to use SharePoint and everything else. It is awesome if we all could get that connectivity together to be able to collaborate together.
The other just a question that I have, when you're talking about the three-phase up at the, is three-phase available on the street?
On both streets, Carol,
yeah.
come on, you know everything about the town. It goes up Rydell and it goes down Main Street.
Oh, good.
Yep, so it's on both sides of the building. It'll come in, if you're, you know the building, right? So there's actually a second pole
Yep.
to the building. So a new transformer pad will have to go
Okay.
actually closer to the building. But it'll be coming in off actually Rydell, not me.
One last comment, or question, I guess. You talked about that building being kind of way under scoped, or maybe not so great with the grounding and all this other thing. We got the engineering side of this new project stuff taken care of, like, in other words, we feel like we're not going to repeat mistakes. We feel like we have an engineering person in place that can scope these things out and do capital projects well.
I was nowhere near around the place, but I'll tell you, I think Chief Gagne did the best he could with the money he had. Town meeting voted him a budget,
Yeah.
and he got into the building and he tried to finish it with the resources he had, under the impression he didn't dare come back to town meeting and ask for anything else, because there was only so much money to go around. And as I said, the building was built for a call fire department.
Yeah, yeah.
It was basically semi-cold storage.
Sure.
Put the equipment in the bays. The chief worked there during the day. He had a couple of people that were full-time, that were helping out, doing inspections and whatnot. And that was all it was for. At the end of the day, it wasn't a 24/7 department. At the end of the day, close it up, turn the lights off, go home. Now, the department is 24/7. You have 7 frontline employees, but you also have an assistant chief, a clerk. So you got 8, 9, 10 people that come through the building in the course of a week
Sure.
and basically live in it 24/7. So then, back then, your radio, if you needed to charge it, you It might have some batteries, rechargeable batteries.
Yeah.
And now
I
it's
totally
way
get it.
more
I
intense.
tot-
So that's what's happening, is that technology has changed.
When did we switch over to a full-time, and I've only been in the town for 12 years now, so I may have,
It
this
was
might
the
be
year before I started here, so it was 2017. It
2017.
was when we truly went full-time for a full
Oh,
fiscal
okay,
year.
so it's not that long ago then.
No, we haven't even settled the roster. It takes time to get reliable employees. We're still,
Okay. But that's good, so future capital projects like that will be scoped out fairly
So
well.
the proper way to do this is, once a project gets to a certain size, you have to hire a designer to spec out the project and then to supervise the actual installation construction.
That's where I was getting at. Do we have someone here in Douglas
So-
that does this?
No, you hire out for that. Yeah, you really never,
Okay.
you were never going to get away with it with credentials on staff. You got to hire out to the specialties. So for the fire department and for the generator project here, we're hiring out an electrical engineer to write out the specs, the actual construction bid documents.
Yeah, no, I get
And
it.
that'll be it. For a $300,000 project, it might be $30,000, but it's going to be the best 30 grand you ever spent.
We won't have to spend it twice.
But, and if it's wrong, you've got somebody to go back on, which is what you lose when it's staff person who might not be here after the project's done or years after the project is
Right,
done.
agreed.
So that's definitely the way we're going to go with all this stuff, even something as simple as a roof. So one place where it was done properly with these windows, here on the first floor of Town Hall. And the architect was here every day, caught them, not wrapping all the cells right. And by the time they were finished, not only did they come in under budget, because they weren't screwing around with the time, but it was all done properly because each and every window was inspected by somebody who knew what they were looking at.
Right.
I think we've saved
Yeah,
a
project
boatload of money.
management is
We've saved a
definitely
boatload of
worth
money
its,
here, having the right people involved.
Dollars, sure. Good.
All right.
Thanks, Dick.
Phil. Anybody else questions for Matt? All right, so if you look at our next item on our agenda, we're discussing the special town meeting, possible articles. We're going to take these out of order, if that's okay with everybody.
Yes.
If you go to Article 10, Highway Bounds Appropriation, Les has the floor. So Les, if you would identify yourself and why you're speaking to us.
Yep. Sure. Les Stevens, address is 31 Brookside Drive. I'm a member of the planning board. The highway bounds, it's not along Route 16, so you guys know. It's actually part of subdivisions and land markings, boundaries related to property boundaries. The town in the early years, 90s, 80s, did a bunch of subdivisions that didn't have the proper funding. And what we're trying to do as a planning board is to go back and clean up these subdivisions and be done with them. It's a benefit for the community, it's a benefit for the town. It stops a lot of things from escalating, such as property disputes and other things that could occur. I do owe you folks a list of which subdivisions we're going after to clean up. Jean reminded me that we got Preservation Drive approved, but the funding was approved at town meeting, but the work hasn't been done yet, so she's still holding that money aside. So I'll work with the engineering company that was awarded to. We're looking to, because we didn't advertise this in the spring, we try to come before you guys for every town meeting to just chip away and be done. And we're getting closer and closer to the end of the tunnel, and that's the goal. I hope not to be before you, I think, one more time for a smaller ask, and then we're done. That's where I hope to be.
So Les, how many subdivisions will this take care of?
So I'm going to do the calculations. The last time we did it took care of $800 per bound, and it was this amount of money would probably handle between 30 and 32 bounds. I have to get a quote from the engineering company that did the last one, what their current rate is. What a bound is, for you folks to be aware of, is it's at the end of the day, it's usually a 4-foot concrete or even granite that's installed into the land and marked and stuff like that. And then you need so many bounds for houses and subdivisions. So we're not going around and marking all four corners to a property, want someone's house and doing the same thing along the way. They either kitty corner it or they do every other, so many houses per bound and some back bounds as well, just to establish those. So we're looking between, if we looked at the last rate, between 30 and 32, and I think we'd probably be able to at least get 3 subdivisions earmarked for this project.
And how many subdivisions altogether still need to get the bounds tidied up?
If we look at preservation.
I mean, I know they're different.
Yeah,
sizes
I
of
don't
subdivisions.
have the whole list in front of me and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I believe we've already closed up a few subdivisions already. I want to say there probably was like 5 or 6 subdivisions that were still outstanding. But preservation was one of them, which should be closed out. So we're getting closer to the finish line at the end of the day. And I know it's an ask, but I think, the planning board's members are very passionate. They vote unanimously. They also, vote in favor of bringing more business into the town and trying to help streamline things to help out the tax base and stuff like that. So that at the end of the day, this came before us because a property owner came before the board and said, I'm trying to install a fence and not sure which way it goes. And, you know what I mean? And they pay their taxes and stuff like that. And it's a shame what happened back in those years with those subdivisions and those developers that went out of business. And the town, partly, held some of that blame with the burdensome of not having the project completely done and funding in place. So I will come back to you guys at your next meeting or before the town meeting with the exact subdivisions and a little more data and a little more updating on exactly what we're accomplishing and what's left.
Jean?
I did request these. Les is going to ask that they be put on their next agenda, so we should have the subdivisions that we want included on this article as well as the residual amount that we'll have to do after that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Any questions for Les, anybody? Okay,
The
Phil?
process that we have now in place, will it prevent this from happening again?
Yes.
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 Can you tell me how?
So there's 3 forms of surety. So there's cash bond surety, there's another form of surety through insurance, and then there's another one which is basically holding the lots as assets until all the work is done, and then you release the lots. So there's 3 forms of state insurance, surety that the planning board now governs and stuff like that, controls this. So, and we hold back a lot of lots, and we make sure that, to prevent this from happening, make sure everything's done, and then we release it from there. We also hold on to, for the road itself, there's usually a cash bond or money held towards the road until the road's approved.
Okay.
So that's how we ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Anybody else, questions, comments?
Nope, just keep doing it.
All right, thank you, Les.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, so if you look at the draft of the articles for the warrant, Matt, are there any more of these that you want to speak to? This is the draft for the warrant articles. You've talked about Article 9 a little bit. You talked about Article 5.
I should go in order since
Yeah, let's just. and
I'm
then
simple
what-
like that. Article 3, there's some cracking at the library ceilings. The library is a very old building. The plaster is horsehair plaster, as far as we can tell. There hasn't been an earthquake, there hasn't been a monsoon, it's old, it's starting to fall down. The process is to tack it up with really thin wallboard, put a skim coat of plaster over it, and solve the problem. If we don't solve the problem, it'll start falling on our staff. The challenge here isn't paying for it, the challenge is finding somebody willing to do the work, since the staging will be over 16 feet high, and it's not a really big job, but we're asking for funds to do that, if we can get a quote before November 8th. I can let Jean explain how she worked out Article 4. Article 5 we covered.
Yep.
Article 6, as you know, we have a multi-phase system for compliance with municipal stormwater management. It's a study and a review of our policies and procedures and the results of the maintenance efforts that we undertake. We are, I believe, in Phase 4. There's a price tag with that, which I typically is right around $35,000. But we've been funding it steadily since since I started here, that's for sure. The personnel bylaw amendment vacation. As I mentioned, it can be difficult finding people. The bylaw, the way it is written, does not allow a first-year employee to take any vacation time, which is a little bit harsh. It's a little bit old-timey, and we don't want people walking off for 3 weeks either, so we got to find a middle balance. We're thinking a week
Yep.
of vacation would be appropriate for somebody. The day they start here, they have the opportunity to take vacation. So we have to amend the bylaw to do that. The personnel compensation chart amendments, this is a routine item on town meeting agendas. We make sure that the salary that appears is in the proper grade and step. The job title matches the actual job title that we have a job description for. We think we have a couple of those to do. As we've hired people, we've changed the titles a little bit to what to reflect the actual duties. The oil spill we covered. Bounds you just did.
Yep.
The zoning bylaw amendment is an attempt to accomplish something very difficult. And so it's going to be for town meeting to decide. That's a 2/3 vote because it's zoning bylaw.
Yep.
In a nutshell, it's not unusual when a town does zoning and you paint with a broad brush and you take one end of the street to the other end of the street and you say, this is all commercial, or it's all residential, agricultural, or all village residential. And sure enough, in the middle of that, there'll be a building that for eons has been a business, right? So you have a residential district, but you had a hardware store, then a florist shop, then whatever else it was used for over, is that Manchog or Mumford, where that is located. You got people who want to do something with the property, and it's an existing commercial layout. And one way to kind of skin that cat is to give a planning board the special permit authority to weigh the various considerations for a specific property. Without spot zoning that specific property, you say anybody in the overall category could get this relief if they met certain criteria. It's for the planning board to decide. The process here is the planning board brought this to the select board. The select board kicked it back under the statutory process to the planning board for a planning board public hearing. When it comes to the town meeting floor, the planning board will present town meeting with a recommendation.
Gotcha.
Capital article, that's all of that stuff at the fire station. And that's all I've got. Oh, gift of land to the town. I think we're going to have a couple of land items on this warrant. This specific one is the strangest thing, right? It all comes down to all these technicalities. Interest in real estate must be brought to town meeting. Town meeting can authorize the select board to do certain things, but it still has to go to town meeting for a vote. We have a subdivision where, and gentlemen, talk about you need to invest in your highway bounds and get a good surveyor, right? So he builds this thing, or he wants to build the thing. He owns the lot next door, and he owns the lot on the other side is owned by the town of Douglas. The lot has an angle to it. He plops his house down the middle. He is violating the setback not only against his own lot next door, but against the town's lot. We can pivot the property boundary line in order to get him out of zoning trouble. But that's an interest in real property. We're redrawing the line on a town-owned parcel.
Yep.
So hopefully this will be the fastest article in the history of Douglas town meeting. I think we're moving it like 5 inches to make this guy problem
Okay.
go away. Other land issues, however, are more significant. I anticipate, I'm almost 100% sure that we will have a conversation about eminent domain on a parcel of unknown ownership that, because Douglas seems to be star-crossed from time to time, is plopped smack dab in the middle of the future warehouse project. 3 acres in the middle of 40. Who knew?
Who knew?
And if you're a historian, I think the land was sold to the town of Douglas for a dump way, way, way back in the 50s. And town meeting either didn't appropriate the funds to consummate the deal, or the deal was consummated and the deed was never filed at the Registry of Deeds. So there's this 3-acre island out in the middle of this thing. There's 18 heirs, because it's one of the storied families of Douglas, and eminent domain is the croquet mallet we use to squish a flea when we have no other better option.
Yep.
There's a negotiation going on with the heirs, so they will accept compensation. They can sign the deed can be filed, and the whole thing can be resolved before town meeting. That is the best way to go. But when you're trying to get 18 people to agree on something, it may not be that easy to get the last party, because they see cha-ching. And it's just not going to be that much money, so they'll get the comeuppance. And there's also potentially a claim against a parcel in another town that title search indicates the town of Douglas actually owns, but the land is in Uxbridge. And the town of Uxbridge has been treating it like it's its own, and actually, they put up a straw man taxpayer, and they kept foreclosing on the poor guy. He doesn't own the land.
Shouldn't we send
So
him a
he's
rental
paying
bill?
redemption every 5 years on a piece of land he doesn't own. And so what you do to clear up title there is you file a disclaimer. It's a claim against the title. And you try to rectify it through land court. It's 20 acres and is very important to the project if we can get it. But if we sell it for the same per acre price that we sold the abutting land, it's $400,000. It's a lot of money. So it's worth pursuing. So we're in the process. All those real estate issues could come up.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
That's
that's interesting.
high drama.
So this says gift of land to town, and did I miss something in there?
So to rectify his lot, he's going to give some land.
You're talking about the
It's
5-inch
The
thing
little
guy.
5-inch guy, yeah, we're going to pivot his lot. line.
Okay.
So he's giving
All
some
right,
to us.
I didn't get that at the end. I got the 5-inch thing that we're going to give him,
Yeah.
but I didn't get he's going to
No,
give
it's
us.
going to be on both sides.
He's gonna give us
You got a
something in
middle
return.
point in your,
Okay, now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Gene, can you come to the mic? Yeah, just want to,
You can do it.
so Article 1, just anything we need to get really concerned about as we look ahead?
I'm probably going to go into more detail on the next meeting.
Okay.
Tree warden, that was a request put in from John Furno. Again, we look at this at the fall town meeting every year. We chip away at this project to get rid of, identify the trees that need to come down, and then supplement the funds to do that. Treasurer collector expense, again, that's relating to some of the land issues. We have to do investigation. We have to hire people to do that. Cheryl has been out, so both that one and tax title, I'm waiting to get a number to see what we need to be. Highway wages, this is for part-time work as well as intern to assist with the highway department, who is unlimited staff. Douglas Public Schools and personnel, this is placeholder, that's going to be discussed later tonight. Highway construction and maintenance, that's for expense for repairs that they had to have done. Again, I asked the departments at this time of year, is there anything that they see that's going to impact their budget to such a number that they can't work the rest of the year? And unfortunately, they had some large expenses in repairs. I will request certain department heads to be here at your next meeting, so if you want to get into more details, we can do that at that time.
So you'll take care of asking?
After you're done here, you can tell me which department heads you feel warranted. I mean, I'm
Okay.
not going to call them all in if you're not going to have any questions for
Okay.
them. Increase the fire expenses. These are, again, 2 repairs that they know about that were not budgeted for. Increase the cemetery expense. I look at the number of mowings that we had to do so far, and I project forward. Everybody likes the cemeteries mowed, especially in the spring for Memorial Day. So we had a very rainy season, so I kind of count the number we've already done, and I know we need at least between 3 and 4 between May and June 30 of next year, so that's what that increase is for. And again, tax title is, I'll be talking with Cheryl about that. There are no prior bills at this time, which
Okay.
I'm happy about. That is a placeholder for both town meetings, so we will pass over it if we don't need it. And the OPEB, again, I'm in the year-end process now. Typically, what we do is we close out or close out to the general fund, and it becomes free cash, the health insurance portion. The health insurance, it was about 135 that's closing out. I usually look at the retirement piece. We have had some movement in census this year. Last year, we transferred $27,000 to OPEB from basically the health insurance account to that. This year, there was nothing in the retiree piece, but there was some in both of the opt-out and the waiver program, and that was about $36,000. I rounded it down to 35. So it shows some movement towards funding OPEB, and, it's good faith for the bonding agency. It's not taking everything that we closed out to free cash, or it'll potentially close out to free cash, but it just shows some movement into that fund.
So Gene, in all the places where we see
X's
X, X,
or
X.
question marks.
Are most of those, you already have a pretty good feeling what the number will be? Or some just absolute mysteries at this point?
Douglas Public School, which is probably going to be the largest in that section, we have no idea.
Okay.
Capital has not met. They're meeting on Thursday. It is unfair to put anything on that. We did it as a placeholder here.
Yeah.
These are the items that are being brought forward to capital. We don't even know if they're going to, move from that point, but, we estimate that they will.
Okay,
But we don't have the price yet.
okay, thank you.
And as Matt said, we have not received any estimates on the library ceiling yet, so we're still waiting for that. I think Justin gave me mid to late September, he's hoping to have a number.
Okay.
So definitely by your October 12th.
Got it.
So from, my ask of you at this point is to tell me which departments that you're going to want to see at that October 12th meeting.
What do you think off the top of your head are the more important ones? Just the way the money works in general.
I would probably ask for the fire, highway. Matt will already be here, and Adam.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So we do it that way then? And Matt, you're going to be around yet on October 12th, correct? The 13th is when you have your vacation, okay. Well, Gene, if you could contact those folks.
Absolutely.
That'd be perfect, thank you. All right, anything else, Gene, for us while you're sitting here?
I don't have anything else.
Anybody have any questions for Gene at this point?
No.
All right, thank you. So if we're, you guys, we're getting to you, so hold your horses, all right? Our next item on our agenda is vote capital improvement committee member. They had some people retire, right, from the capital committee, or
They had some people resign.
resign? How many on the committee when they're full? 9? And how many are on it now? 6. Okay. Would anybody like to be on capital? I'm happy to do it.
They meet during the day.
And I'm retired, so I can meet during the day, but
I nominate you.
Yeah, you step forward, so let's,
Any,
I think it's interesting, but I think it's a good thing for you.
Heather, you have a comment?
Not it.
Any objections to me volunteering to be on capital?
No.
That be okay with
No,
everybody?
Nope.
that sounds delightful.
Okay, so I'll put my oar in for that then.
Take a vote.
Do we need
Yeah.
a motion or not?
I would.
You should speak as a body. The select board is the appointing authority.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Forward the recommendation to the select board.
So would somebody move that I be the person to be on capital?
All right, I, Carol Gogolinski, so whoever's
King of
writing
South.
this,
Yeah,
move to appoint, oh my God, I forgot your name.
Dick?
Dick Vandenberg to the Capital Committee.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Sandy
Sandy.
Kuipers. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion is unanimous.
Thank you, Dick.
All right. All All right, let's look at meeting minutes. These were emailed to you about a week ago,
You did a nice job.
and let's just take them in chronological order. So the oldest, what's that?
Do we have them here?
I think, Gene, you made copies, didn't you, there? Okay. So let's look at February 23 first. Everybody find that one?
Did I might have missed these.
I emailed them to you a week ago.
Email you.
It's possible.
Okay.
So let's look at February 23. Does anybody have any comments or questions on February 23?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 23 as written.
Sandy Kuipers makes the motion.
Second.
Heather Moore seconds. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. And Phil Landry abstained, so motion carries. Okay, March 9. Carol, you were remote that night.
I was.
Yeah. So any comments or questions, anybody? March 9?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from March 9, 2021.
Thank you, Sandy Kuipers. Second, anybody?
Second.
Okay, Heather Moore seconds. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstain.
I'm going to abstain again because I don't see my name here on this one. I thought I remember the
No, you were absent, I
BBD
think.
person.
So, Phil Landry abstains.
I'll abstain again.
Yep,
Sorry.
it's okay. All right, next one is March 23. Phil Landry was present at that one.
Nice.
I think we were all there that night.
Yeah.
I have a question for Matt. If you look at number 3, everybody budget presentations, and then letter D, Matt Wojcik's report. Subpoint number 2, he reviewed the mechanics of using newer software to share documents and so on. Any idea, Matt, when this might kind of just be up and running for everybody? Are you still working on stuff, or is it just a matter of us logging in and getting set up?
Getting the email set up, so our guys will be here tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Anybody comments or questions on March 23?
Make a motion that we approve the March 23.
Okay, Heather Moran makes the motion.
I'll second.
Phil Landry seconds. Discussion, anybody? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. And then the last one is June 22. I think we were all there for that one, too. This is when we had a new vice chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is
And a
that?
new chair.
Yep.
Heather, how often do you sign approved vouchers? How often does that happen?
It's only when Jean calls me, tells me, or sends me an email.
Okay. So not too many times.
I haven't been over here this year. at all.
Okay.
The big, well, the majority of it was payroll. and
Right,
We
exactly.
didn't pay you.
Exactly, okay.
We will have the mailing costs for the fall town meeting, so she'll sign that. Actually, I probably have to do your, if I haven't done already, the membership dues for FY '22, if I haven't done that. So I'll look for that.
I haven't signed it.
No.
Okay, oh, and my other one, Matt, for you, this is on page 2, but you described where we stand with replacing certain positions within the town hall. Are we close to getting all those replaced? And I know you hadn't had many bites on the town engineer, and
Yeah, I know, but it's really been, we've been
where do we stand on that?
we've been playing musical chairs. The good news about that is a lot of existing staff are staying, they're just downsizing their involvement. So we filled every single position, including minute taker, and as of today, I'm making an offer to a community development director. So we should be full
Okay,
by the end of today. That was the hardest one.
all right, great. Thank you.
It's just-
Anybody else comments or questions on the minutes of June 22? All right, we need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of June 22, 2021.
Sandy Kuipers makes the motion.
I'll second again.
Phil Landry seconds. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, if I could put a footnote on Matt's comment, our principal assessor is retiring as of 12/31. We will be probably advertising mid-October, and perhaps some in that seat by mid-November.
Okay, thank you. All right, if we're looking at our agenda, everybody, we have open sessions for topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance. Do we have any topics like that that have come up in the last 48 hours that we need to address? Okay. All right, so if we carry on with our agenda, I had a request from Matt that we go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining. And Paul Vieira and Courtney Keegan are here from the school to also be part of that conversation. So before we go into executive session, which we need to take a roll call vote to do, just want everybody to understand that it's to talk about where we stand with collective bargaining. Matt will be speaking, and Paul and Courtney will also be speaking. Everybody good on that? Questions? So we need a motion to go into executive session, and then when we vote, it'll be a roll call vote.
Now, while you're in open session,
Okay.
I think to maintain compliance with open meetings, the subcommittee of the school committee that handles negotiations needs to call a meeting into order. Did you post? Because you have a quorum.
Did we post? I think so.
Can you say that technicality again?
I'm not going to get hung up on it because we got to do this tonight. We can't put
Okay.
it off.
I'm just talking about for our understanding of what you're
When you
talking
have a
about.
quorum of one committee at another committee's meeting, and they're going to discuss that committee's business, they need to post and convene the meeting.
So
Even
in
if
other
it's
words,
for
they need
purposes
to
of
be
going into
in active
executive.
meeting for this to come here. Do they have a quorum?
Yeah, where's the quorum?
Your
I don't think-
your subcommittee has that quorum.
Oh, so dual function.
So is that
But
going to be an
here's a
issue?
couple of things. One is the entire conversation's an executive session
Yeah, we're not voting.
anyway. And you interrupted me, so I lost my train of thought. It was a really good point, too. It's going to
Well,
come
the
back.
subcommittee quorum,
We are also subject to ground rules that preserve the confidentiality of what's being discussed with the other side. So
Okay.
we can't possibly do this conversation in open session. We couldn't do it, so.
oh, I see.
It's a learning. I don't think anybody's going to be overly.
And then the other part of our motion, everybody, implied in it is that when we go out of an executive session, then we will adjourn for the evening.
Okay,
Do
so
we
the
adjourn this
motion,
Meeting?
No,
would the motion be to,
Go into
I could
exec-
make a motion to go into executive session, and at the end of that executive session, I would also make a motion to close out the Finance Committee meeting.
well, yeah, within that motion is when we're finished, we'll close our regular meeting.
So I'll run through the menu for you. Basically, I move that we go into executive session for
Yeah.
purposes of to discuss collective bargaining.
Correct.
That the minutes be held in confidence and withheld per the Open Meetings Act, and that when we adjourn open executive session for the purposes of adjourning the meeting.
Yep.
It's close enough.
So who would like to make that motion?
I was trying to make it, but
I think Phil
I'm
Landry made-
trying. It's a little tricky. So I'm going to make the motion that we go into executive session for the purposes of discussing collective bargaining. And at the end of that executive session, we will be closing out our finance committee meeting.
Correct.
Automatically.
Phil Landry made the.
Adjourning, sorry.
Yeah.
Adjourn.
So that's the motion I'm making.
Okay. Seconded by
I'll second it.
Carol Gugalinsky, second. So now we need a roll call vote. Start with you, Sandy.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Heather Moore, aye.
Phil Landry, aye?
Carol Gogolinsky, aye.
Dick Vandenberg, aye. So we're now in executive